Welcome to That Japanese Thing. Today we're going to be talking about Tenki no Ko, a anime movie from 2019. Today with me we have Dylan and Yesh. Welcome, guys. How you doing?
Hi,
Hello.
I'm good. How are you?
I'm perfect. I'm Christopher, and let's get right down to it. So we're just going to dive right into the discussion. So this is another thing we watched on Yesh's couch. I mean, Yesh's couch is a good place to watch movies,
I was
apparently.
gonna say it is a very good place to watch things.
And the reason we were watching these series of movies, we watched Kimi no Nawa and Tenki no Ko. Weathering with You is the English title of this, which is a terrible, weird name.
Maybe
Weathering with You.
maybe you should explain why it's terrible compared to the Japanese.
Sure, I
What the
mean, or
Japanese
Tenki
means.
no Ko, right? Tenki is weather, so I get why they went with weathering. And then no Ko, Ko technically just means like child, but it's like a slang term for girl. So
Mm,
it's weather girl, I guess, is what they're going for.
Child
the
of the
title.
weather.
Yeah, but like more specifically, like I think anyone who just would hear it would understand it as like weather girl.
mm.
And throughout the thing, it is about a girl who controls the weather, and like in English, like with the weathering aspect. I mean, weathering is like you put something in the sun to weather or outside to weather. It's
Kind of
kind
to
of
wear down as well.
like
Yeah.
bleaching with you would be like an equivalent title, wouldn't it? Or aging with you maybe, or something like that.
Yes, yeah,
Oh
yeah,
no,
yeah.
weathering a storm is also a thing. It's not
Yeah,
just
but
about tear down.
but
It's
it's
about
in
resisting.
like enduring something
Yeah,
Yes,
that
yeah.
yeah.
that beats you down, kind of, right?
Weathering with you.
Totally.
Yeah.
And that's not really what this is at all. I
Not
mean,
at all.
there is some like tumultuous kind of journey going on throughout this, but nothing in particular is that kind of weird like long aging kind of weathering, wearing down kind of feeling. It's like really quite a fun, short movie, really.
You know what it is? I think so. So the title, the Japanese title, kind of has inside the kanji a little bit of a pun. Well, not in a funny way, right? Not a joke. But
Okay,
there's like because Tenki the character ten is
heaven
for
energy.
heaven or
Yeah.
sky. And there are heavy elements of this that being the spirit realm is in the sky, right?
Right, yeah, yeah.
They
That's
talk
where
about
the
that a
dragons
lot.
live, yeah.
So at some stage, maybe someone down the line was said, "Oh yeah, make this like like a sort of a double entendre kind of idea," and this
Yeah,
was what they could come up with, as opposed to just saying, "Okay, it won't directly translate, but people aren't really here for some odd double meaning in words; they're here for the actual anime."
sure. I mean, I get that. It's just some Japanese. Oh, so it's a comics wave film. I'm not really familiar with them, but
Mm.
like Ghibli gets their English titles really well. Like were really well translated. Like
Sure.
Spirited Away is a pretty
Yeah.
direct uh, translation,
Translation.
I guess.
Mm.
Anyway, so let's do some non-spoilery stuff up front, and then we can just talk
Yeah.
about it. So let's just go through. As I said, Comics Wave Films made this, distributed by Toho. I think it was released in 2019, so just before the Great Sad Times hit, and this would have been in theaters.
It is a very optimistic film, I found.
I mean, this is
So
the sort of things that happen, in the third act. That
Without spoiling,
listen,
yeah,
stop looking at it objectively and just look at it through the character's eyes, and it's optimistic.
okay. So the main character is I don't know if it's the main character, but the male protagonist is a high school student who runs away from home. Hodaka.
Odaka.
Yeah. And he has some bruises and such on his face when we first see him, so he's probably running away from some bad situation, it seems.
Mm.
And then he he just finds a gun, and that's the sort of impetus for the story,
Oh
right?
yeah. Oh my word. I forgot about this weird intersecting point.
Right. in
Like
Japan.
guns in Japan.
It was strange because you see in the beginning of the movie, there's just adverts for guns everywhere.
Let's
on
talk
screen,
about
right?
this for a second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not only do we see a news story that a large cache of guns has recently been discovered in the news in the background just before our boy finds this gun, but also, did you guys notice that as we go through this movie, everyone assumes any child walking alone is a runaway? Like, that would not be my
That's
first.
such a common trope in anime, though.
I feel like it's a common trope in some things, but I do feel like this movie was trying to tell us that runaways or abandoned children, one of the two, is relatively common in the era of this movie.
Well,
Let me tell you this: if you're doing something out of the ordinary in Japanese society, the chances of a policeman coming and interrogating you is super duper high.
yeah.
So
Well,
it
I'm
doesn't,
not
it
saying
doesn't
that
surprise me that people
interrogation wasn't the issue so much as the idea of kids being abandoned or running away is
Yeah.
brought up quite regularly and as the first choice.
Do you know what I think contributes to that, or at least contributed to that, is that the homelessness problem in Japan gets a lot of coverage, and so the public perception of it is that it's super common. And
Oh,
and there. I mean, during my travels, there were plenty of homeless people. Not so much teens. I think that is maybe a bit of a trope.
unusual.
But there are homeless people. Is it like as rife a problem as elsewhere in the world? Certainly not. Like by no means is it like that. But I think in a country where their news are going to focus on their problems, it probably gets covered quite a bit. And so as a story point, I think that may have contributed a little bit to sort of the believability of it as a story point.
But for me specifically, I haven't seen it brought up quite so fast or quite so regularly as it is in this movie. From a pure media perspective,
Oh, I've seen
usually
it recently in quite a few things.
people tend to go, "Are you out doing a task? Are you on holiday or something?" before they go to, "Have you run away?"
Oh, yeah. I think
I'm not saying that runaways don't exist in Japanese media. I'm saying people see it as their first choice every time in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, like, look, if you were not a teenager, if you were an adult, and he's sort of underneath a building's awning, taking shelter, people might have just assumed he was drunk or resting off until the trains would arrive.
So
But maybe because he's a teenager, they just assume.
I mean, there's quite like there's some uproar about an anime about a runaway schoolgirl and I think he's like late 20s, early 30s guy who just lets her like live with him. I can't remember what the anime was called, but people were like borderline, demanding it be taken off the air because
Sure.
of what it suggested about like runaways and that sort of thing. It's very strongly discouraged.
I am familiar
Children.
with that anime that you're talking about. It's
Yeah.
the JK that I picked up.
There we go. Yeah, and I mean, I don't know. People seem to feel very strongly about like children must do children assigned activities, and if they're out of place, it's often noticed, and people will come and investigate what's going on. So I think it's not as abnormal as you might think, especially in Japan. I mean, if you saw like a little girl like wandering around a shopping center by herself, of an inappropriate age, I'm sure someone even anywhere in the world would, try and help or report or find out what's going on. Yeah, and anyway, that's not really what we're talking about here. So,
Sure.
but there is a little girl, and her name is Hina Amano, right? Amano Hina is the female protagonist. She is the Tenki no Ko, and she's got the pun name.
Yeah. I see that now.
So Hina is obviously sunshine, right? And Amano is heaven's field, and she does end up in a pasture-like environment on top of a cloud on a field, I guess, at some point in the movie.
Mhm.
So that's I feel sometimes Japanese people can't help themselves with the puns and the names and such.
Yeah.
Which I don't mind. I like it. It's fine.
Sure.
And so she's also like a runaway child, right? They call it like a stray child in Japanese.
Mhm.
She's living by herself with her little brother. I can't remember exactly why she's run away, but
What I understand, her parents died. Both of the parents died.
right. Okay. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
like she's just living by herself then,
Hmm.
and yeah,
She doesn't want to enter the support system because she's afraid her brother and her will be separated.
So Hodaka has run away to Tokyo because of a bad situation. She's living there, and he's kind of homeless, and he's just sort of wandering around, wondering what to do about the gun he found.
Yeah.
Which I feel like, had he just gone to a police station and just left it outside, the problem solved,
Or just walked away from it and then to a police station and informed them where it was.
Or worked to Tokyo Bay and,
route, yeah.
practice his throwing arm skills. Various more logical things could have happened.
Various logical things.
But no, he keeps the gun. And while he's wondering how not to be homeless, he's sort of living in a McDonald's, which is where Hina is working. And she notices he sort of just comes in there and has water for 3 days, and eventually sort of takes pity on him and actually just buys him a meal. And that's their meeting point, right? Thereafter, he somehow gets involved with a gang fight thing that's going on. Which is
there's
not
a
really,
gangster type guy who tries to recruit Hina, who at this point in time is pretending to be 18,
Yes.
to do AV modeling. This is a trope in some anime and other materials, where young girls are taken into studios to do stuff and then blackmailed to do worse stuff.
Yep.
From the appearance of the guy and how he treats people around him, you're definitely supposed to get that he's not a good guy.
Yeah, no, he doesn't seem super legit about what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
But this ends with Hodaka pulling out the gun, pointing it next to his ear and firing it off, right? To sort of discourage him from, beating him in the face, which he was doing. So, I mean, from a self-defense point of view, I guess that's fine. But he wasn't supposed to have a gun, obviously.
Mm-hmm,
And
absolutely.
firing a gun in a residential area is a crime, I guess.
Well, owning a gun is a crime, so...
Well, it depends. I mean, but I mean, he didn't have a license for it, so definitely that's illegal as well. Then that sort of sparks off the police storyline, where we have a detective who's kind of investigating all of these gun-related incidences. I think that, and then we get into the paranormal kind of magazine, newspaper, blog kind of thing that's going on in the background as well. What's the guy's name?
Keisuke?
Keisuke, yeah. So he's a middle-aged man who runs a publishing company that reports solely on paranormal kind of stuff. So his assistant goes around to investigate various supposedly paranormal activities. And I guess in the beginning, Hodaka doesn't believe any of it and kind of just sees it as nonsense. He even says something to that effect when we're going to a fortune teller. And I think Natsumi is the student who's working as the part-time in the offices, kind of takes the fortune teller's like words one for one as absolute truth. Hodaka sees everything as kind of like a lie. The ironic thing is that the fortune teller was, speaking a complete truth about literally everything she said in that statement.
One of the advantages to watching this together was we actually had a slight difference in reaction to the fortune teller, where most of us zoned out as soon as she began speaking. And then it became obvious that she was literally telling us the plot.
Yeah.
So we were like, what did she say exactly? But we don't remember.
It was something like, oh no, Tenkinokos are real, and you're actually like a fox spirit, or something like that. Which is unlucky.
And also the idea that using the power comes with a price, and that it will have to be paid.
Yeah. And okay, so that takes us to the main plot, where he's working for this guy who's making this paranormal stuff for virtually no money, but he gets room and board, and that gives him a little bit of stability. Having rescued Hina, he suggests a business venture to her after he discovers like she has some magical powers. And her magical powers are that she can make the rain stop for a short amount of time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so
as a note,
Yeah.
the rain has been going for 3 years at this point. Apparently, like, it almost never stops raining in Japan now.
it was, so unseasonal kind of extreme weather was happening in the Tokyo region for a long period of time. And she has the ability to kind of restore the natural order. Well, supposedly. But every time she stops the rain for a short amount of time, it kind of comes back worse. But they make it a little online business where they rent out her services. So, like a dad can buy like a sunny day for his child's birthday or something like that, right? What did you guys think about that little plot?
Thought it was a very good way of making me agree to the business in a way, because they present it as these guys have no other choice. And then only later, once the price starts becoming obvious that this is going to come back badly for us, does it feel like there's this creeping horror to, this lady wants to sell better today. Let's get some sunshine. Starts to feel like a big problem.
Yeah, it feels like a windfall followed by,
Full
nothing in this world is free.
But I mean, I don't know. It always felt to me like it was just, kind of obvious that something was going to come of the kind of rampant abuse of magical abilities and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. But see, I think the movie does a good job of making us feel like this is the only choice they have initially.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean they're both kind of like scraping by, and this does help them out hugely.
Mm.
But yeah, I mean, so that's I think as much as we can kind of say without like spoiling it. The proper glasses and like some stuff happens, but we'll speak about that after this. I'd say I'd give it a good 7 out of 10. Nothing disagreeable really about the movie per se in my regard. What do you guys think? Yes.
For me, it was an 8 out of 10. I think it garnered some interesting ideas. It sold me into its world really well. I enjoyed my time with the movie.
Yeah, it was a very watchable romantic adventure film for me. So if that's your kind of bag, that's definitely an undertaking to go. It's very much got like those elements of having to fight and sacrifice for your love.
So this is the 7th highest grossing film of all time in Japan.
Sure.
And it tied Spirited Away and Millennium Actress for the most nominations at the Annies. 5 each.
Okay.
So it's like incredibly highly regarded. I'm not sure. I would say it's that impressive per se. It is like I think visually stunning, and I really liked the story. I'm not sure it's that caliber of film.
So maybe provide like comparison anime films in context that you feel like would blow this one out of the water.
Well, I mean, the two films that it's tied with are Spirited Away
Spirited
and
Away,
Millennium Actress.
So I've never seen Millennium Actress. Only Spirited Away. I mean, like Spirited Away for me.
I mean, even Kimi no Nawa, I would say, is a little bit better than this.
Yeah, I definitely would say Kimi no Wa is better for me.
I mean, it's hard to pull out films out of my head that I think are better than this.
Yeah, but that's kind of so like anime films is almost like a very niche topic for me, right? Most of the anime I consume is in the series format, or at least a mini series. But yeah, I would agree with that. Kimi no Wa, I feel is definitely a stronger film overall, especially in terms of a romantic adventure film.
Yeah.
Spirited Away, in terms of a fantastical film, I feel kind of is on par with. Although I would say that there are other Ghibli movies that I prefer that I feel are stronger.
Yeah,
I personally think this was a very good movie, and it did a very good job of getting its message across. So
Yeah.
what I liked about this in particular is just like there was a lot of action and like fun action throughout the film, in like a weird kind of way. You know,
the
with
pacing was solid.
I mean, I also like the sort of referencing that it had, where you know, like the going into a Big Mac store with the Makarov, or you know the sort of more Tenchi kind of philosophy that comes into play with
I mean,
the concepts of their heaven. You know,
there's a bit of like climate changiness about it as well.
oh yeah,
Which
yeah, definitely there are elements of that.
So let's get into that. So Tokyo sinks, right? And
Yeah.
not in the lame way that happens in an anime of the same title.
This was an active choice of mass destruction.
So like the plot progresses and it becomes clear that she has used her power too much and that the dragon spirits are going to take her to, you know, the heavenly realm. And then if she goes
by
there,
the way, this is spoilers.
yeah, we've already said that.
Yeah.
And so when that happens, the weather in the world will be restored to what it was before the torrential downpour or whatever.
I actually don't think that's what happens. I think it will still be raining when she goes.
No, it stopped raining.
It stopped raining for a little bit, yeah, but that's because, well, anyway, sorry, carry on. Yes,
Anyway,
as a sacrifice,
so as I
she holds
understand
back
it,
the rain.
her going to heaven is what stops the rain and
The rain.
lets people's
Yeah.
lives get back
And
on
it's
track.
very much meant to be a sacrificial offering.
And so then there's this whole like kind of weird thing where the boy in the story is not having any of that, and he escapes the police, points some guns at them, and finds a way through the Sky Temple to track her down, and somehow they fall back to Earth without dying.
Yeah, he fought for his love and won.
Yeah.
Kind
And
of vibe.
as a result, it starts raining again.
And does not
And
stop.
it says it doesn't stop. And then it goes 3 years later.
And and the majority of Tokyo is underwater.
Water.
Yes.
Yeah, Tokyo is completely submerged. Well, not completely, but Tokyo Bay is most of Tokyo now.
And you know what's interesting? There was that person who referenced it. I think, or like with a little bit of foreshadowing, saying like, you know, Tokyo Bay,
The old lady, yeah.
60 years ago, or whatever, was completely different. And
I mean, like 400 years ago, I think
and
she
it,
said, yeah.
that was like legitimately a true thing. It did,
Yeah, Tokyo was a swamp, right?
It did change
Or
significantly.
an estuary, probably.
That's
is a
why
better
I
word.
was a little bit interested when Chris was saying that she uses her powers to restore the weather to the natural weather.
She
that it
doesn't
should
use
be.
her powers to do that. Her existence is what's, you know, making the weather bad. So removing her from the cycle.
I got the exact opposite from this. What I'm getting from this movie is actually these weather girls have been sacrificing themselves to hold back this weather.
No, indeed.
And that the natural state
Yeah.
is supposed to be the flooded Tokyo.
Well, it depends
But
how
a
you see that,
series
right?
of decades of woman sacrifice, well, not necessarily
Hundreds of
women.
years. Yeah.
Hundreds of years of, well, I mean, that's the thing, right? When we get to that temple part where like ancient history is carved in the wood, we've come to realize that these do they call them weather girls or sun girls? I forget.
The weather.
Anyways, the weather girls, let's say weather girls, have been sacrificing themselves for generations to keep the rain back. And by breaking the ritual, they brought the rain, which flooded the bay. And like that lady was saying, this thing used to be flooded. The natural state was flooded. It's literally just been being held back by the continual sacrifice.
That's interesting.
And thus I came to realize that this movie is actually The Matrix 3.
What? Why?
Allow me to explain. So it turns out that there's an entire system where the weather keeps approaching the end of the protection from this, as an error keeps accruing until flooding happens, until the one is sacrificed in order to bring balance back and remake the equation that Tokyo should not be raining.
Yes,
And this has been... Yes?
I said I'm very disappointed you've yet to use the words vis-a-vis.
Vis-a-vis the end of Tokyo by a flooding. But basically, as long as there is a love for the people instead of an individual, we have these girls giving themselves up to protect the people, to protect their happiness, which is exactly what our girl here did. She chose to keep everyone's smiles rather than herself. And this continual sacrifice has kept the rain away, has made Tokyo sunny. It wasn't until someone was in love with an individual, specifically her, rather than a group. This is what we felt actually was weird. That the boy was willing to sacrifice other people in order to keep his love for her intact.
That's definitely like the main perspective of it, but I feel like underneath
I feel like it sold it to us as he's being irresponsible and he's choosing his love over like all of the suffering.
But
if you think about it,
I'm just saying in like sort of support of what you've just said. It also, the movie kind of has this feeling for me that because it's a natural state, right? Because weather is weather.
Weather is weather.
It's not actually it's not a responsibility necessarily that you take that other
for an
choice.
Individual to kill themselves to keep it away.
Yeah,
I was going to say,
I'm not sure if she's killing herself. That's one thing. I mean, I think she's just kind of ascending, right?
Cool. She ascends to a different plane of existence, not in contact with mortals anymore. Let's not call that killing herself. Cool.
I don't know. If you get to live with like the dragons and shit, that sounds pretty good to me. She isolates herself
in an ethereal world, Chris. Fine. Cool. Anyways.
Yeah, she's triggered.
I'm not triggered.
It doesn't seem ethereal, does it? I mean, there's literally
fucking
physical
fish made out of water.
No, it does.
Physical fish, yes. Yeah.
I will come up in support of the etherealness. It does feel ethereal, especially when she starts turning translucent and watery.
But also, does it matter if she is literally dead or figuratively dead if she can't hang out with the people she was alive with?
I'm not saying it's great. I'm just not saying it's like a death sentence either.
Okay, so she's not dead. She's just permanently alone and kept away from everyone she knows.
Yeah,
I'm still saying that's
it's not oblivion. It's like the complete ceasing to be.
Okay.
On a tangent, so the Japanese wiki says that they are weather shrine maidens.
Weather shrine. Well, we did see that weather shrine, which is where we got the idea that the history actually goes back.
And it says sometimes they're called weather girls and sometimes weather women.
Weather women, yeah. But there was definitely a shrine maiden word used at one point. But ignoring that, though, oh dear, there were 2 points I was trying to make and I forgot them both now. But long story short, the boy's action actually just restores nature at the course that was supposed to be without these sacrifices. And also, if you recontextualize this as every year a village throws a girl into a volcano to stop it from erupting, would you support that action?
I wouldn't call it that for one thing. And I think it's not quite as clear-cut as you're trying to make it out to be here, right?
Yeah,
so,
but
nothing in this movie is too clear-cut.
Yeah, so I mean, just in terms of like the ethics or returning to like nature thing, there's not such a strong feeling of one way is super correct and one way is super wrong either. I mean, there is the message like that the old woman says like, oh, this is just nature returning to what it used to be, and that there are cycles of this sort of thing that happens. And perhaps the sacrifices of these girls, if you want to call it a sacrifice, because no one is actively killing them, right? It's not like someone is forcing them to be these
completely
be these
isolated from
things.
everyone they know against their will is a sacrifice.
I mean,
yeah.
who's choosing them to be sacrifices here? I mean, it's
They
literally
are.
it's literally like some sort of god spirit, right? Who's answering a prayer. It's not like someone is physically throwing someone into a volcano as a sacrifice.
No, sure. It's like, but it is her choice. If she doesn't, if
Exactly,
you know,
and which is the opposite of a sacrifice, really.
Are you saying self-sacrifice can't exist?
Or at most, it is a self-sacrifice. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, it's a self-sacrifice, sure.
So she wanted a sunny day so much for her mother, one more day before she died, that she became this weather girl, right? That's what started this. And it's not like, a weird old priest showed up and said, I'm going to turn you into this weather girl, and then we're going to turn you into a water spirit, and the sunny days will continue, sort of thing. It's not that clear cut. So it kind of feels like this is kind of just a thing that maybe the gods sometimes do. And do they do it because they want to preserve, like, their followers in Tokyo in the way that they're living now? Is that not natural? You know what I mean?
No, that's not natural. It's
That's a
literally
bit-
supernatural.
That is a bit of a far stretch for me, because it's like the god is
Literally
imposing
supernatural.
is imposing a condition that is.
I understand that, but
their intention now is that you sacrifice someone.
From a Shinto perspective, the god is a natural part of nature.
Sure.
And whatever it decides is what goes,
Sure.
So from that perspective, what is the right thing? And I don't think it matters in the story, because both choices don't destroy the world, if you know what I mean. Like, people had to move out of Tokyo Bay a bit further inland.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem like the end of the world, though.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like there's a lot of. I'm not saying that there is commentary in it. It's just that it's paralleling a lot of the commentary I've been hearing regarding the whole. I mean, I don't want to say climate debate, but the climate, the ins and outs of response to climate change. And a lot of what happens in the story kind of mimics a lot of the conversations that are currently going on. Now, I don't know if the story was actually informed by that or if it's coincidental, but it was very eerie at the time for me.
I mean, it's definitely got a message about climate change. I don't know what that is, though, right?
Yeah. I mean the whole moving out of a flooded bay thing is currently what is being talked about, right?
That's something that's for sure going to happen, and perhaps to Tokyo. Certainly to a large parts of the world. That sort of thing is in the future, and there's really nothing we can do about it at this point.
Yeah.
So that does feel like it is something they were trying to bring up as a thing. And I don't know. A lot of Japanese movies and culture have elements of just accepting natural disasters as a thing that happens. I mean, people say like Godzilla is just a metaphor for forces that you can't control, and you just have to kind of catastrophic events, war, earthquakes, tsunamis, so on and so forth. This is the opposite of that, right? Because this is a very controllable situation from certain perspectives, and I don't know what. I mean, I'm for what happens in the movie, right? Like, I think the right thing happened. But if you look at it from like a utilitarian perspective, it was definitely the wrong move. And utilitarian means like what is good for the most amount of people, right? So
the ethical philosophy. Yeah.
So this was extremely dangerous for like 40 million people. And on the positive side, this guy got a girlfriend.
Yeah,
that's the balance of
I mean, you got an argument there that's definitely surrounding that, like, in terms of maybe not moral responsibility, but what is morally noble to
Yes,
do.
yeah.
In terms of that utilitarianism. The problem with utilitarianism is it also sort of always tends to overlook
Yeah, no,
the alternative that is the natural coexistent alternative, which
people,
is like
yeah.
learning to live with the way that it is rather than trying to continually mitigate the level of harm through sort of an accounting, right? Instead of doing that, you're like, no, you shouldn't be living in Tokyo in the way that you're living. I'm like flat out sorry, that shouldn't be happening. You should be choosing to accommodate what's going to happen or what is happening or in a state of
Yeah.
what's going on.
To just be fair to like the utilitarian aspect, I mean, the theory says you must look at all the possible things that are going on at the same time.
Sure.
And I think in that case, it is just better if this is going to be a continual problem of like, girls disappearing over time rather that people just move, a few hundred miles inland or something.
Yeah, and in fairness, that is kind of how that system starts to break down, because you take one kind of loss or one kind of sacrifice that is so different to another that it becomes difficult to do that accounting in, right? It's easy to do the what's the classic example, the tram car.
Yeah,
that is
trolley problem.
The trolley problem is basically this kind of vibe. But if you're looking at people having to move, the amount of money that's lost, the potential lives that are wrecked in terms of businesses, you can't equate that directly to the loss that these girls encounter, right? We won't argue about whether they die or not, but there's no direct equivalence to actually sit and say, okay, what's the scale on this problem? And that's where that kind of philosophy starts breaking down. You almost need to start looking at other tools or other approaches to find a more satisfactory answer, if I can word it that way. Because it is just about satisfying.
I love that this has become a conversation about philosophy.
Sure.
But we might be veering off topic.
Sorry, guys. Moving on.
No, it's fine. What else happens throughout? Oh, so another emotional points is we learn like basically everyone is not quite as shitty as they seem throughout this film.
Some of everyone that we meet is not as shitty as they seem.
Even the gangster helps at some point, right?
No, when does he help?
I mean, he tries not to mention them to the police for one thing. And then he helps the other guy, like the newspaper guy, track them down. So anyway,
gangsters not wanting to talk to cops seems like a pretty natural
but
thing to me. especially about illegal weapons.
Well, I mean, whatever, right?
Especially in the Japanese system where they like to make you confess for certain things.
Sure.
Sorry. I accept your points. I'm just having fun with him. Okay.
We'll leave him alone then. But we know that we get to see everyone's like tries to make like the right choice and kind of fails at some point. Because of it.
You do see a lot of that. Yeah.
Heisuke is like a class management suite on this particular topic.
Yeah.
I mean, he kind of starts the plot off in a certain way, doesn't he?
Definitely, because he sends our boy out to learn about.
Well, no, he saves the boy's life in the beginning.
Also true.
Yeah. So he stops him falling into the ocean, gives him a job, sets him about his task, and that makes the plot happen. And his motivation is he just wants to see his daughter, who he doesn't have custody of because of some very strange reasoning. I mean, I don't know about a strange...
We don't know what happened, but we know that he doesn't have custody.
Yeah, the grandmother has custody. I think that may have been because of his work conditions or the like what he could provide at the time that decision was made. And then the girl's grandmother doesn't like him visiting because he smokes. But which kind of feels like it's almost like a pretense type of
definitely
thing.
feels
She
like
just
she's
doesn't
trying to
like
cut
him visiting, or she disapproves of him.
Yeah, the
It
girl
feels
has
like
asthma.
she's trying to cut him out of her life.
Pretty
Yeah.
much, yeah. That does seem to be what's going on there.
Yeah, and then
And he doesn't seem like a bad guy or anything, and he tries to make all the right choices so that he can, keep seeing his daughter and that sort of thing.
and then kind of sacrifices that at the end.
Right. But that turns
If
out
you-
to be
if
what
you
you
get
should
arrested.
do. That's what the movie's saying, right?
Yeah,
You should do dumb stuff that you feel is right.
Correct. That is
And-
what the
and
movie is trying to tell us.
That's what the world wants you to do for some reason. Which is not... I'm not sure I can get behind that sort of
No,
sentiment.
all of us are a
wholeheartedly.
little bit too cynical to accept.
Not-
It doesn't matter if it's right if it feels right.
not blindly at least. Like nuance means everything in that kind of context, and it would have been a pretty bad movie for me if it ended there. Sorry, dude.
There are consequences for everything, right? But
Yeah.
but just notice that when everyone stopped thinking about the consequences of their problems, everything got better for them,
Sure.
right?
Let's actually talk about that for half a second.
Sure.
There is a cheerleader for that exact method of thinking. Natsumi Suga,
Exactly,
the
yeah.
niece, who seems to be such an airhead and like just not concerned about anything for the first 2/3 of the movie. But she is also like unquestionably, I think, the best person in the movie. Just constantly trying to treat everyone well. She has an open approach to everything, and she seems to be having a better life because of it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Side note, her English actress was Alison Brie.
oh, okay.
Really?
Alison
Sure.
Brie.
Well,
The English.
Community. Awesome.
little Annie is known for her voice acting. But yeah, she wants to find a better job. That's actually in like an office environment of some sorts, right? That's her goal.
Yeah.
Trying to be an OL, yeah.
And she's just failing at it the whole movie for whatever
Well, it's
reason.
I mean, it would be really difficult for her if she didn't. I mean, like the way those things work, to be in that sort of maybe not so much anymore, but to be in those sort of they don't call them salary women, they call them something else.
Yeah, yes, said it already. Office lady.
Office lady, yeah.
OL.
To be there to sort of do that, you kind of need to have like this sort of perfect. From my understanding, you need this perfect track record of going, to university, then straight out of university into that position and going through that. And if you kind of miss that, you kind of mess up your chances, and then people start asking you why you're so old and still applying for this kind of position, and it becomes a nightmare.
No, it's definitely the implication of what's going on. But she still is in the kind of the perfect position. She's a student, and she's just trying to make that. But she's having a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
And then she decides randomly one day that she's we're just gonna throw that all away. On the off chance that she can help. What's his name? Hodaka, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know, that just works out for her. And likewise, it kind of just works out for the newspaper owner when he decides he's going to stand in front of a gun for the guy, right? And all these things just conspire to kind of make you kind of question maybe like your hang-ups about doing things, which I think is useful.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going through that phase in my life, and it's a lot easier to try and, as much as I hate these sayings, there's no real better way that I've found to describe it, but like go with the flow of things.
Yeah, and what's that like? What's that called? That philosophy, wabi sabi, I think, is what it is.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's just sort of taking like the perfect imperfection of life at face value, and just letting things kind of happen.
Sure. Yeah.
And yeah, that's what's going on there, and that's what that whole chase sequence is. Just a series of accidents that ends up working out.
Working out just barely.
Which is so strange for a Japanese film philosophy kind of production storyline thing. Because that is such a weirdly European Christian kind of way of negotiating fate.
Mm.
To a certain extent,
just
but
giving up
I-
abdicating your responsibility and believing in a higher power. kind of
believing
thing.
something will make it work.
Yeah.
I do feel like there was supposed to be an aspect of feeling like there's a higher power working for this romance to work out.
The dragons maybe are maybe
Yeah, I mean,
influencing
there's a
things
lot of
in different-
serendipitous events to bring them together.
When our boy
Like the
runs
fact that
through the
yeah.
Tory gate and actually goes up, I feel
Yeah.
like that means that a god or a greater power had to make that happen.
Yes,
It's
well,
not like it was his willpower that did that.
Sure.
exactly. And just in context of these series of films, the first film is about the time slip body swap kind of thing that's going on, right? In Kimi no Awa. And
Yeah.
the person is a shrine maiden, right?
Yes.
Yes, yeah.
And this person accidentally becomes a shrine maiden.
It's
Yeah.
chosen by a god basically to become a shrine maiden.
Exactly.
Can I ask? Have we chatted about the kitsune? In the beginning of the movie, didn't it say that people
Well,
are
it
divided
implied some
into those
stuff
two?
that he might be like a fox spirit type of thing. You know.
Yeah, but that's
And a
yeah.
helper spirit that helps other things. But
And-
I like
yeah.
once again when that was being said, all three of us kind of mildly zoned out for the fortune teller.
Right? But
Yeah.
you know what I noticed? There was so much imagery around it for him. For example,
Absolutely.
he was eating, as the first meal we saw was kitsune udon,
Yeah.
and just various things throughout his like.
Yeah,
thing.
there were
He
marks
gets-
on his face at one
yeah,
stage.
he gets
that
the Naruto kind of marks on his face,
Mm-hmm.
and that just continues.
Yeah,
Sorry, just to
definitely
continue-
has that. But
Continue
obvious-
your discussion about Your Name and then this movie. This movie had two characters from Your Name in it. Taki
Did it?
Tachibana was a character from Your Name, and his grandmother requested Sunshine from our Sunshine Girl for Taki and his friends to play with. And secondly, this one I didn't realize until I saw it in the wiki. I went back and I looked at it myself, actually. Mitsuha, the girl that gave the string initially, is in this movie. She is the
Oh.
lady that sells our boy the ring just before the girl gets ascended.
I had not realized that in the slightest.
I
My
didn't
bad.
realize that, but I went back after I saw it in the
Wow.
wiki. She has a name tag with her surname on it,
Sure.
and it's played by the same voice actress, and she has the same drawing.
Okay, so
is
it's
the same style.
It's confirmed that it's in the same universe.
In the credits, she is listed as that, the person who sells Hodaka the ring.
There apparently
I thought that was just a
1,
random
2,
thing.
3, 4, 5 people from Kinonawa in this.
Oh, okay.
Really?
Yeah.
I only know about these two. But yeah, I went back to the scene, and it's literally Mitsuha. It's the same voice actress and the same drawing,
Sure.
the same body drawing.
That's what I'm saying. That they are sequels in a sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
And all of them are about kind of. They're all supernatural romances. I think is the connecting thing here.
And climactic catastrophes.
But yeah, all natural things that conspire to destroy our love story. That's what seems to. And we haven't seen Susume no Tojimari because it's not out anywhere except in Japan.
At the moment, yeah.
You can watch the first 12 minutes on Amazon if you want to, but you can't actually go and see it. I'm not sure if you can get it, other ways.
What does that name mean exactly?
Portals, I recommend, maybe? Doors?
Susume means something, though,
Yeah, like
specifically.
recommend or advance. That
Oh,
sort of thing.
okay. Portal Advance. Interesting.
I'm trying to
Okay.
just find the English title. I think that is the English title.
Perfect.
Oh, no.
I think...
Well, okay, so turns out Susume is the name of the character. So it's would be in that case closing the door of Susume, something like that. I'm sure
It will also
I'm
be a double entendre E name, I'm sure.
it's it's fine.
It's got to be a double meaning in it, I'm telling you.
we'll find out when we eventually get to watch
we'll work it out.
Yeah.
We'll work it out.
But I think that one is maybe about tsunamis, from what I hear so far.
Perfect.
So we'll get to and interestingly, on the poster for it, we see one of the doors of the name just in Tokyo that has been flooded. So I'm guessing that'll be the connecting fabric between the things.
Follow through.
When eventually we get to see that. What else haven't we spoken about in this one? I think we've covered most of it. I mean, would you have watched this in theaters if we could have? I think it came out at like a weird time for that sort of thing, but
Sure.
Generally, I skip anime movies in theaters because usually the reason I'm watching something in a theater is for the bang boom explosions. And especially with Japanese stuff, I prefer the ability to rewind and go, wait, did I hear that wrong? Because
Sure.
I'm not fluent in Japanese, obviously. So
who
being
is?
able to just rehear stuff is important.
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, I like watching these sort of things in theaters just because of like the kind of immersive quality, and like the animation quality has just been kind of really great in these.
Yeah, I don't think it would be a waste of money to see it in the cinema. Let me put it that way.
No, especially just like there's a lot of falling scenes in these movies through the sky, and I
Yes.
think that would be pretty great in like an IMAX or something like that.
Sure. I agree.
Okay. Well, I think that'll wind it up for the discussion about the movie. And next on our topic list is just some Japanese news. So, Disney's getting a lot of exclusive streaming things for various anime of late. And that's because it's partnered with Kodansha to release a whole series of anime products. And I think it's mostly just in the US that this is happening, or maybe associated markets and that sort of thing. Exclusivity rights are very different in Japan, so mostly they still want to air on like some sort of television platform for advertising purposes, and a lot of people just still watch TV in Japan. I don't think, as much as they used to, obviously, because that's a dying industry, but still a lot of people are tuning into TVs there. But outside of Japan, Disney Plus is winning over a lot more and more exclusive rights animes to air on their streaming service, which I don't like. I think it's fine if they had like if they were making their own original stuff, and then they were also buying just anime to air on their service. I think that would be great as like a competition to Crunchyroll. I just don't like the idea of having to own like 6 different streaming services to watch all your anime.
That's a problem I feel is fairly common in the West right now as well. Everyone's trying to split everything up so they can maximize their own profit.
I mean,
But we're going from it used to be comfortable to have 1, maybe 2 services to get everything, to now you need quite a few. And the problem is, locking anime behind different doors just cuts the number of viewers down. It's going to make some anime that could have exploded moderately popular instead of like crazy popular, which cuts their chances of getting a season 2.
So just reading specifically to one anime, Tokyo Revengers is going to be one of them. And outside Japan, but in Asia, it will stream exclusively on Disney Plus, and I believe also just throughout most of the Western world. So let's say America, Europe, it's also going to be on Disney Plus. I don't know what that would do here, but I imagine it would be quite similar. And the only place this doesn't really apply to is, of course, Tokyo. I said Tokyo because it's going to be airing on TV Tokyo in Japan. Yeah, I don't know. It's fine. We'll see how it works out. I mean, if Disney Plus can just maybe destroy Crunchyroll a bit. That might be good for Crunchyroll, and then maybe it will improve. But I don't like I don't like how many streaming services one has to own just to watch.
Two series.
Two series. Yeah.
Yeah, it misses the point, right? The reason why the reason why it was taken so well when Netflix did what it did, and people in the beginning at least, and people kind of stopped pirating as much when they had the option to do so, is the convenience and affordability of the service. The minute that got split up between so many different services that then had proprietary content, it became, okay, well, you guys are sort of, reinventing an environment in which people are just going to pirate content because people don't want to subscribe to 50 million different services, be charged, bulk fee for it.
I know it's like popular for people to kind of look down or be angry at Netflix for some reason. But it's a quality service for like a number of reasons. I mean, it always has CC subtitles for the hard of hearing, for example.
Yeah.
Which Amazon almost always doesn't. Even if they do exist in a particular region, it only allows it for specific shows. I believe the shows have to pay extra for it, is my understanding. And it only puts them on its own shows. So that just seems weirdly kind of evil.
Yeah.
But Disney Plus is also good in that way because it also has subtitles and it'll have various language options as well, even for audio and so on and so forth. So at least it's also a quality streaming service. Unlike Crunchyroll, which even if you pay for, frequently doesn't work very well, doesn't have very many options on how you can watch things. I mean, I don't think you can download things on Crunchyroll to watch later if your internet's bad. From my understanding, still, there's like an ad problem in the way you watch things on Crunchyroll, which is why you'll see some stuttering and some sort of like buffering, even if you're on the paid services. Because it's still pausing for the parts where the ads should be, even in the paid service. And so I think it would be good if a company really attacked that monopoly outside of Japan and took some sort of competition to them. But I still don't want. I don't want to have to like watch this thing on Amazon and this thing on Netflix and this thing on Crunchyroll, this thing on Disney Plus, and I'm sure Hulu will have their own thing as well. Although I think Hulu and Disney Plus are the same thing now. I'm not entirely sure if that's true.
They're still got separate subscription.
But I think they're owned by Disney. Yeah. Anyway, that's my news for the week.
Damn. Yeah.
Oh, and there was one tangentially related thing. People are still speaking about. So this is from the Daily Campus, which I make no comment on their reporting. An article about anime as a soft power strategy that Japan is using to expand its like power outside of its like own borders. And people are saying this because it's a $24 billion industry and there's been like 100% growth of anime streaming during the Corona period.
Sure.
But it's just nonsense. I mean, Japan has no anime strategy. Sure, they invested a lot of money in the industry, $500 million, I believe, a few years ago. And that explains why we are getting just so much anime at the moment, which is great. But anime is not propaganda or like a weird kind of cultish kind of thing that a government is trying to control. I don't think Japan's government really has that kind of power over its companies to try and even do that. I think it just wanted to make an industry that is profitable, which they've succeeded in, which is good. But anime is not trying to convert you to some weird, I don't know, global philosophy or like weebdom,
some kind of weeabooism.
Yeah. I'm sure you get people who are too into anime. A lot of people describe me that way, but it's kind of ridiculous the way people see the world sometimes.
I think that only if you can't have a conversation with someone without it being anime related, right?
Yeah.
Like it doesn't really matter how much you watch, as you know, as long as you can talk about things that are outside of it, and do talk about things that are outside of it, then you're more of a
So
holistic person.
So this man raises the fact that we have like animes for the Japanese Defense Force and Coast Guard and Navy and so on and so forth that have strange connections to those sort of industries, and the fact that anime characters are used to advertise these sort of things. And fair enough, maybe some of that is inappropriate, but on the other hand, there are a lot of Western TV shows that have full cooperation from various powerful navies and armies that, are really associated with that sort of thing. I mean, remember Stargate had a really strong tie to the U.S. Air Force.
Yeah,
They got full access to all of their bases. They got all the planes and stuff, and it was a really good propaganda tool for the Air
yeah,
Force for a while. But it doesn't mean that like Stargate was like a really like government owned propaganda thing promoting the U.S. military. In the same
sure.
way that 2016 Gate series of anime, sure, it was about the Japanese Self Defense Force, and it's a little bit jingoistic about how great they are and how they're bringing peace to like a savage world or whatever. It's not propaganda though. I think people misunderstand what actual propaganda is.
Yeah, despite the fact that there's a lot of it prevalent
Indeed,
to
yeah.
contrast against those things. I I think a lot of things get um, uh, cobbled together along with propaganda under the banner of propaganda
Right.
that makes it unfair. So I mean I agree. I don't know. Like
And an equally invasive global phenomenon could be the Marvel movies, just for example,
yeah,
which really has like taken the world by storm. And you can't go
yeah,
anywhere in the world without seeing someone wearing some sort of Iron Man T-shirt or something like that.
yeah.
And I
I
think
mean you
that's
can.
something you can have this conversation about.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Oh, at
even
least,
then, even then,
yeah.
it has no government involvement as far as I'm
Yeah,
aware.
yeah. I mean, it's not government propaganda, but you can argue that it's like very much, at least the majority of it is fighting for the ideals of the West,
Sure. And
kind of
China
vibe.
certainly has that perspective and heavily, has certain things altered before it allows those sort of movies to be released in its markets.
Have you seen some of the Chinese movies released as well? Now that you can sort of kind of that's edging
I
closer to
yeah, I
propaganda.
kind of love those Chinese movies because they are just the very. Well, I mean, China is a different beast, right? It is a centrally
Yeah, yeah,
controlled, planned economy,
100%.
and it has a lot of say in the creative uh,
Yeah, that's actually
creative process. Yeah.
it's a good sort of in terms of media. It's good to compare their
Yes.
media output to before you like say, oh, this is propaganda. Just compare it because there's a lot of revisionism in it, which by all rights, you make your movie the way that you want to make it. But when a state is essentially driving the creation of a movie, you can imagine that it's going to hold certain
So
messages in it.
there's a few like Chinese anime and Chinese sponsored anime out there at the moment.
Mm.
Uh, Bilibili in particular is sponsoring a lot of anime stuff. One is Bansegai, which is the Japanese title of All Saints Street,
Mm.
and it has a lot of messages which I'm sure are very agreeable to the Chinese state, particularly in regards to like money and such. It seems there's a lot of like moral lessons about that happen in that.
Yeah, yeah.
And I mean, mostly it's fine when you're skirting around that, but it is noticeable in ways that it's not noticeable for Western movies, Japanese movies, and so on and so forth.
Sure.
especially when you look at some of those Chinese like disaster movies. When it's it's only China who can save the world and that sort of thing.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's like the States. Hollywood has that sort of attitude to it.
Sure,
So
yeah, it does happen. Or
the things I'm thinking of
Independence Day
like are
kind of things.
wartime films where like a single Chinese partisan will as a sniper will just take out like a whole platoon of Japanese
Right.
snipers, and all the snipers are on like the setup is kind of ridiculous, but like at the same time you can point to Western movies that weren't sanctioned by the government, but definitely have that like very heavy patriotic element to them.
And
I think the
yeah,
difference is that you also have, in contrast to those films that Hollywood produces, you know, films that are rampantly anti that ideology. So you get both, right? You,
yeah.
you you get a full sort of environment of it. I think the right question is, do you get that full environment in content that maybe has to go through a lot of central
I mean,
approval?
sadly, no longer in China do you have the access to the Hong Kong film industry in the way that it used to be
Yeah,
made.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
we
It is.
don't really see those kind of anti government movies coming out of China at all anymore.
Mm.
Maybe sort of you get something tangentially that comes out of Taiwan. That's something like that. But they don't really have the economic clout to make movies of that scale.
Yeah.
The Japanese like World War movies are also interesting,
Mhm.
because you get a more Japanese centric kind of view of everything from there. There's some Japanese like Pearl Harbor kind of style movies out there.
Oh, really? I,
Yeah,
I I only know the ones that where it's like there is immense suffering. Full stop. Like everything is pain.
there. I mean, there. I think they do want to emphasize how bad it was for Japan
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
during
No,
World
I
War.
mean, and again, in a part of a healthy diet to have that in the mix.
Yeah, I mean, certainly like Japan was probably at fault for a lot of that stuff,
Sure.
philosophically at least.
Yeah.
And
Mm.
and there's some stupid things that the Japanese government decided to do. But I mean, you can put most of that down to the fact that they were like a borderline fascist controlled, like right wing kind of
Yep.
government at that point.
Yep. Yep.
In particular, just siding with Germany is just something I've never understood. Like, what did they think was going to happen later down the line, right?
Yeah.
Let's side with
Someone
the people
ask Kanye.
who actively want to kill all the non-white people. That seems like a thing we should do.
Yeah. I don't. I know that there's a lot to the history in terms of things like energy resources just prior to their involvement in the war and the rest. So but I don't know those details specifically. So I can't talk with any authority on it. It's just yeah, getting involved in a war where you really absolutely don't have to, and it doesn't threaten your sovereignty, and it's unlikely that you're going to come out looking like anyone other than an aggressor is really not a good idea. Which I feel like,
I think I've derailed the news section, but that's fine. But
sure.
so we do see in Japanese history that there was a strong kind of philosophical point for Japanese supremacy and specifically
Yeah.
cultural supremacy throughout that era,
Sure.
where
And military supremacy as well from
Yeah.
previous wars. Yeah.
maybe we'll talk about that at a later point, especially maybe during some of the older movies we're gonna see.
Yeah. Yeah. That'd be cool.
But anyway, what do you guys have for news?
I
Um,
have from Saitama Prefecture an ongoing. It's not quite ongoing. Saitama like to certain people, especially the elderly, like to engage in telephone harassment in Saitama. So the latest is a man who's been arrested for calling police no less than 2,060 times in under 10 days. They have worked out that the average of each call was one every 6 minutes. and it resulted in over 27 hours being spent on the line with this individual.
This guy.
It was a 67-year-old resident of Kawaguchi City who was arrested for this. He would phone and like call them assholes, the equivalent of assholes, and that they're sort of tax stealing ne'er-do-wells. Let me make it more polite. So he was very unhappy. He sounds mentally ill. I mean, I can't imagine anything worse than having to be on the phone for that much. But this is not the first time this kind of behaviors occurred. There have been previous examples of blatant misuse. In 2019, there was an elderly gentleman, 71 years old, who made 24,000 abusive calls to his telecom provider, which
That's
I
impressive.
mean, I hate telecom providers, so but I don't know if I could if I can get behind 24,000 abusive calls, especially when
that's more than a full-time job.
especially when those people on the other side of the line, unfortunately, are not going to be the CEO. If it were the CEO, 100%.
I mean, on the other side of the coin, he's abusing a telecom, not a human being.
Well,
to get off that
human
topic,
being.
though,
Yeah.
Saitama is having a Lucky Star exhibition. If
Mm-hmm.
you're in the region, maybe go and check that out.
Nice.
Anyway, Yesh, what do you have for us?
Okay, so amusingly, I did have that Saitama story listed up as well. No,
Oh,
it's
let's-
cool. The good news is I've got two smaller stories to cover in the event that I
Okay.
couldn't do that one.
Incidentally,
Cats.
this was
Comics Market
Yay.
is planning on shifting their amount of people allowed in per day to 120,000 next year. This is quite useful as their limit last year was 85,000,
It was so...
which was apparently a bit crazy as the lines became unmanageable even for the Japanese. So more than 50% up from there is a great move, and they are hopeful that they'll get up to 210 in a couple more years. So that's great news on that front.
It's
and
crazy
now that I've
how
given
popular that has...
that event has become, yeah.
I mean, it was always crazy popular. I mean, even back in like the 90s, you can see like pictures of people waiting in line for like
and
up
in the
3 or 4
90s in
hours.
particular, liking anime and doujin and stuff was considered like almost deviant behavior.
Yeah.
But to see such a big fair for it is incredible.
But I mean, something. It was only like 5% of the Japanese population that engaged in any anime-related, manga-related activities.
and stuff. Yeah, manga.
And now it's something like 45 to 55% of the population. I mean, not to say that they're like super fans or anything, but those are people that will watch the odd anime here or there, will read some manga about something.
Almost no one I watch or watch stream or watch on TV from Japan doesn't read manga. So
Yeah.
it's become pretty mainstream to enjoy it. Anyways, as I was saying, on to the bad news. On January 7th, the new Trigun Stampede show airs, proving that hell has not yet arrived.
Ooh.
Sorry, that's it. I linked in our Discord, boys,
I saw.
the trailer. Wait until you see how the other characters look like. Vash himself is already terrible, but I saw Meryl and I almost pressed stop.
Oh no.
I have seen the trailer and it's very disappointing. It's such a weird choice to do.
Wolfwood looks younger than Baki who's a high school student in an anime called Baki. So he looks like he's about 14.
It's strange because we looked up some of the production companies involved with it, and the people that made Captain Harlock, I believe, were involved with this
Toho
heavily.
Animation. Toho is gargantuan.
But
they have all the money in the world.
Toho is just the releasing house.
Yes,
they're
but
not
they're
actually
helping
making it.
fund. They're helping. No, they're not making it, but they're helping fund it.
I know, but it's not controlled by them in terms of the production, and it is a 3D thing. Because I think maybe they're trying to get into like the Western style Clone Wars sort of thing for a general release abroad.
Okay, so I just want to say, Clone Wars, the old one, the one from like 14 years ago, looks
Yeah.
better than this.
That's, I mean, not true.
It's
but
not even a question. It's not even close.
I think you're
Go
forgetting.
look
the
at
first,
Meryl's face and tell me
I
that.
think you're forgetting that like those huts from the first season of Clone Wars, and they're 5 polygons.
Okay, so I raise you the huts with all of the main cast of Trigun.
I'm not defending Trigun. I'm just saying it's not that bad. It looks like what it actually looks like is the Resistance animation Star Wars thing, kind of almost exactly like that, which I don't think was a great idea. It's they've taken away all of the lines out of all of the animation, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Which makes it look more like a 3D realistic kind of thing. But
They
God,
got rid of the
that's not
opening
why I
song.
watch anime, right? Yeah. Well, they would have had to do that anyway.
No, I accept that it's as big of a sin as removing Fly Me to the Moon from the end of Evangelion.
Evangelion, right?
It's a sin. We need to recognize this.
Yeah, I'm not sure how. I mean, I don't like the idea of that this is even a thing that exists.
I'm gonna say something that might get me yelled at. I again, Yesh, I've said this to you before. I feel like some of this content isn't for us; it's for a newer generation.
I absolutely agree.
You know, like
Yeah.
maybe this is for other people to fall in love with the character of Vash, even if that character bears no like writing or visible resemblance to our character of Vash.
And then I want to agree with you, but I think that the people that this is for are still meant to be humans with eyeballs. So I must disagree a little bit.
We have no indication that that's true.
You're correct as well. From the animation style, it apparently is not for human with eyeballs.
Again, from our
I'll grant you
previous episode conversation, this company's only assisted in animation before. It's never made a full production, as far as we're on.
Okay, that's fair, but I do feel like this is definitely more of a style that Zoomers would appreciate.
Zoomers
Then-
would appreciate style.
Is that true? Do Zoomers not like just normal anime?
Let me put
I'm
it to
sure
you
they
in
do.
simpler terms.
I'm talking aesthetically.
Fortnite has more polygons than this.
It's equally ray traceable, I suppose. Yeah. I mean,
Fair.
they wouldn't have to
Fair
change
enough.
the character models to put them in Fortnite, so that's obviously the gameplay.
Maybe that's the
Advantage.
intention.
Yeah.
The ultimate intention.
Maybe they were like, well, we can make an anime, and then we can make a video game based on the anime. But why don't we just make a video game and use those models to make the anime? That'll save some money.
I mean, it might not even be really for Zoomers. It might be for the next generation post Zoomer.
What, like 5-year-olds?
No, it's not. It's not quite
5-year-olds still
5-year-olds.
have eyes.
No,
5-year-olds
no.
still have
Chris,
eyes.
Chris, we be old, yo.
Hey, okay. If I must ramp this up, allow me to ramp this up one more time.
Yeah.
Coco Melon has better graphics than this.
I don't know what that is, so I'll
Okay.
disagree. I don't actually think the problem is the quality of the animation. I think the problem is the uncanniness of the animation.
Yeah.
When you're expecting an emotive hand-drawn face for all of these characters, and what you're ending up with is a what's that company? The Canadian game company with the uncanny mouths and the armor moving through shoulders. They made Dragon Age and such.
Yeah, BioWare.
BioWare. This is what's happening. This is like a BioWare.
I can sort of
Cutscene.
agree with that, yeah.
Okay.
It's not like it's low quality. It's just it doesn't.
I've seen
Doesn't
New
quite
Ground
meet
Flash
any
animations
standards.
with more animation than this.
Some of that stuff's really well drawn.
Look, I will say that I had no intention of watching it, but I mean, maybe I should. Maybe I should give it a shot and see.
I mean, if it streams on something I have, I'll definitely give it a watch.
Then at least it'll help you get through some of those books you've been meaning to read.
Lol.
Shots fired. Yeah.
Okay, well, gentlemen, that'll conclude it for this week.
Thank you very much.
Thanks
Thank you,
everyone for
everybody.
listening. Ciao
Have
for
a
now.
good one. Ciao.
Bye.